Welcome to Kent Hans, the best storyteller in Texas podcast. We would love to hear from you. Send email to info@hanspodcast.com. Again, that is info@hanspodcast.com. Of course, follow us on Instagram as well at Best Storyteller Podcast. Chancellor, start us out as you do every week with your saying of the day.
Colin Powell said, leadership is the art of accomplishing more than the science of management says is possible. And that's great that you're going out and there may be a science of management, but you're going to go beyond that. Mm-hmm. And that's true leadership. And it comes from a 4-star general who was also Secretary of State. Today's a remarkable day. You know, you got the Eclipse and then you got the NCAA basketball men's final tonight. Mm-hmm. And, I think a lot of people watched the women yesterday, and Caitlyn Clark has gotten people interested, and she's deadly on long shots. But the championship game's tonight, and today's the day of the Eclipse. Now, the bad news is they're a little off on the path. Not much. Mm-hmm. But the real bad news is going to be cloudy. I've looked at Lubbock, and also Lubbock wasn't as close to the path as Austin, but Austin's supposed to be cloudy. Now, it'll still happen, but it'll get dark, just like the sun's going down. And they always say that animals, they think it's night, and it confuses them. NASA was monitoring an eclipse in Zambia several years ago, and they said the temperature dropped 15 degrees, and the wind will pick up. And you know how it is at night. Once the sun goes down, it cools off. You don't have the sun on you. One time, when I was in high school, somebody asked about an eclipse, and Miss Littlepage said, it's nothing more than the disk of the moon getting in front of the disk of the sun. That's pretty simple.
She had quite a way of simplifying things, didn't she?
She did. Said if you got money coming in, you might got money going out. If more goes out and comes in, you're going broke. And I used to quote her all the time in Washington. But, that's really all there is to it. I've got a law partner, Jay Stewart, who's an eclipse nut. Really? I mean, he's into it. He flew to Omaha and then drove out for 6 hours in western Nebraska to the last big eclipse. Mm-hmm. And, it's been big on his mind. Unbeknownst to me, he did something I didn't realize he was going to do. He's the managing partner, so we're closed today. he just closed us. So, check with me next time. Everybody's... we got to see the eclipse. It's so important. It's a thing of nature. This is a big thing in your life. And they asked me, don't you want to see it? And I said, I'll see the next one. And they said, well, that's 22 years. Yeah, I'll be 103. I'll watch for it.
It's quite an economic boom for a lot of
$6 billion for cities along the path. And there are people. I had a guy, David Williams, in Kerrville. Somebody called and wanted to rent his pool house.
Really?
Yeah, and it reminds me that when the Formula One races first came to Austin, I had a guy had a house on a little ranch down by Lockhart, which was only about 6 miles from where the racetrack is. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to know, what I'd charge them, and they could have it for a week, and also did I have any chickens? And so why would they not know? And so later found out, and they talked to them, these people were not local. I mean, they were from other countries, mm-hmm. and they thought it was good luck to sacrifice a chicken. And I'm thinking, I think it's good luck. I don't rent to you. I don't know what they had in mind. But they want to know if we had chickens nearby that they could buy one or two.
Speaking of animals and stuff, did you see the thing in Italy about the goats?
Yeah. There's a small island right off of Sicily, and they put some goats on there to help eat the grass and everything. Well, the goats have multiplied like a bunch of rabbits, And now they're taking a position. They're announced all over Italy, you can have a goat free, or you just got to come get it. You got to catch it and put it in a boat and take it. You know, I mean, that's not going to be easy. And, you know, they might tell hunters, but this would get them on the bad side of PETA or somebody. You come shoot a goat, you know, but they're not that desperate. They want to be nice about it, move those goats on to some other area. One of my cousins, I mentioned my cousin last week, and I got several calls on that about the April Fool's joke. One of my cousins was at a dance one night in Nazareth, Texas, and he bought a goat, and he put it in the back of his car, and he forgot about it. When he got home, the goat had gone to sleep in the back of the car. And the next morning, he came out about noon, and his motor wasn't running as fast as it was the night before. And that goat had eaten about a third. He had a convertible, had eaten about a third of the top of the convertible. It was over there going bang, you know. And
putting a goat in a car, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, what could go wrong? You know, a decision made with a few beverages.
Goats are strange because remember a few years ago there was this whole fad of doing yoga with a goat. I never understood what that was all about.
I've done yoga before, and I get a lot out of it, and I think it's good for you. And I did yoga, and the place I did it was Austin Ballet, and the floor wasn't always clean, so I did it with my socks on. They called me Sock Man, and I was at a UT Texas Tech football game, and somebody yelled, "Hey, Sock Man, Sock Man!" My wife said, "What's that? What's that about?" And I said, "You know, I mean, yoga. I don't take my socks off."
For those of you that are listening and may have never tried yoga, it is a workout.
It is a workout, and it's good for you. It keeps you limber, and I can still put my palms on the floor without bending my knees, and that's from taking yoga.
That's good.
And it's keeps you limber. The hype on something like the Eclipse is really huge, and then when it's over, it's over. There'll be a couple of stories, and that'll be it. Mm-hmm. And but it's going to be a big deal tomorrow. Fredericksburg is expecting 100,000 guests. I don't know where they'll put them all, but 100,000 people added to a town of probably 20,000.
Yeah, and they've already got declared disaster areas, so they could get funding for those areas for extra state patrol, extra everything.
They'll need some extra patrol.
Yeah, for sure.
There'll be some bad drivers. You know, when they had the 50th anniversary in Roswell of the sighting of the lights and the UFO in Roswell, that weekend the police reported they had more rear end collisions than they'd ever had before, because those people were driving around and looking up in the sky. They wanted to see the Roswell lights if they came back, and they wouldn't be watching the road well enough, and they'd run in the back of somebody.
May have some of that today too.
Yeah.
Problem. Speaking of drivers and driving around, did you see the thing about Uber drivers?
Uber drivers, a third of them have had an accident. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I understand that. They get to using their cell phones maybe when they shouldn't, you know, and they're told not to. But they're regular human beings. They drive many times in areas they haven't been in before. And also they have to put up with, lots of times they have to put up with drunks that don't know where they want to go. I had a state senator one time that always consumed more alcohol than he should have, and I saw him on a plane, and he wasn't in good shape. So I told him I'd take him home, and I got him in my car. It was over at the old Austin airport, and I got there, and I paid out, and I said, "All right, where are we going?" Nobody said. I looked over, and he was sound asleep. I tried to wake him up, and he had passed out.
Wow.
And so I drove around with him for a while, and finally I got a little information out of him. And I called somebody on his staff, and they told me where he lived. And they met me over there and helped me get him in to his place. But he just went to sleep.
Next time you saw him, did he remember it?
No, if he didn't say anything about it.
Well, you did him a big favor.
You know, I did do him a big favor.
Yeah.
He did have, the staff member said his car was at the airport. I said, he wasn't in any condition to drive.
A state senator on an airplane. That drunk.
Yeah.
Wow. That'd be
Rare.
Good. Yeah,
rare. I don't know anyone in this day and time in the legislature that I've ever bumped into that I felt like they needed to get home. They are always in good shape.
Boy, today's day and time, that'd be all over social media.
Yeah, social media would eat you up real fast, and then real reporters would start writing on it.
And that's not good.
No.
Another reminder that we would love to hear from you. Send us email to info@hantspodcast.com. We also encourage you to scroll through our past episodes. A lot of great content there, a lot of great interviews. Most recently, a really good interview with Drayton McLean. So scroll back through our previous episodes and enjoy. Chancellor, there was an interesting article out this week about 10 amazing inventions and the people that came up with them.
Look, I'm always amazed when I hit a light switch and the light comes on. I'm not a mechanical engineer by any means, and things. I think about coffee. Who came up with the deal that there's this bean, and if you'll crush it and then grind it and put it in water and get it hot, it'll be good coffee, something to drink. And I guess they chewed them for a long period of time, and somebody experimented a little more, and you wound up getting coffee. There are certain cities I go to, there's a Starbucks on a corner, and right across the street there'd be a Starbucks on another corner. And Houston's got one of those. The guy was going to meet me one time, said, I'll meet you at Starbucks, I think it's Westheimer. And I got out there, and there's two. So I had a 50-50 chance of getting him. And I went, and he wasn't in there, so I went across the street, and there he was. I said, you need to let me know, if there's two on the same. He said, I didn't realize that until I got here.
I think as people, we need to be thankful for curious people. I mean, the advances made in medicine, the advances made in technology, all start with curious people.
I always thought I had an MRI one time. In that tube, and they'd take pictures, and I thought, wonder who thought this up. He had to be smart. There are people out there to solve problems. The problem we have on climate change and this fossil fuels and everything, the public will come up with ways to solve that. Mm-hmm. Just when it needs to be solved, it'll get solved. And forcing it is not an answer. Forcing it rarely ever works. But when there's really a need, it will take care of it.
Do you feel like it's being forced right now?
Oh, there's no question about all the electric stations they're putting in and trying to get people to buy an electric car and say that by 2030, they want to make sure everybody has an electric car. It's going to cost a lot of money. If I have to drive to Lubbock, will I stop and cross plains and get some more electricity? I think on electricity, I think of Snake Adams, my old buddy from high school. Mm-hmm. He had a house in Amarillo. He had snakes ditching service, and had snakes drawn on the side of the pickups. And somebody knocked on the door, and he went to the door, and this woman said, and he said she's kind of trashy. And if he put them in that category, they deserve to be in that category. And he said said she wanted to borrow some electricity. He said, do you want a sack or a bottle? And she said, well, I've got, and she had behind her, she was holding behind her an extension cord. And so she needed to warm the bottle for the babies. So she went back to his kitchen and plugged in and put it out the window and went outside and got it, stretched it over to her house and put it in her window. And he said that he forgot all about it, and about 2 weeks later, he was home one night and he was fixing something to eat, and he saw that cord, and it's still plugged in. And he looked over there, and he said there were some lights on the house, So he went over and knocked on the door. She came to the door, and he said, I'm going to repossess my electricity. Kind of laughed, and he said, I'm going to unplug it tomorrow. I'm giving you tonight. Well, that's we'll try to get that bill caught up next day. And so the next night he came in and unplugged it, and the lights were on, and they were brighter than they were when they were just getting electricity from him. But it is unusual somebody shows up at your house and say, could I borrow some electricity?
Well, didn't you have a friend had a funny saying about measuring electricity?
That's Fat JB.
Yeah.
He said, JB said that electricity is like love. It's hard to measure. I always liked that.
Chancellor, I used one of your lines this week with my daughter, and it's a great story that you've told before, but she was going through some stuff at school, whether or not to join leadership of an organization that she's in, and she was complaining that, it seems like what she was trying to say, it was a good old boys club, in high school. And I used your line, which is...
I told my daughter, she was going to Kelly Hart and Hallman, one of the great law firms in this state, and she said, it's a good old boys network. And I said, then you need to be president of the Good Old Boys Club. Get to know every one of them, what teams they supported, what their college was, talk to them about it, talk to them about sports. And she knew more about sports than most of those guys did. Mm-hmm. And, and it worked out well.
Yeah, that's not really an excuse anymore.
If it's a good old boys club, get in there and get to be president of the good old boys. Don't let that bother you. That you can accomplish that.
I love that line.
Sandy, I read the stupid criminal story this week, mm-hmm. and they need to split them up, and they have the stupid criminal story, and then they have one that says the very stupid criminal story. This guy goes into Louisville to get a haircut, goes in a barber shop, and they got through with him, and he didn't like it, and they got in an argument, and he pulled a gun, and he said, this is so bad, I'm not going to pay you. And they said, it's okay, you can leave, and he said, well, it's so bad, I want everybody's money back. That's called armed robbery, people. That's 2 to 20 years in most states. But he pulled a gun on them, and they just got carried away and caught up in the deal and said, well, let me have everybody's money back. When I went to the movie, I mentioned last week, The Mean Girls, when I went up to get my money back, I didn't say, let me have everybody's money back, right. And I didn't have a gun. I just said, I want my money back. And people don't realize that. They'll give you money back. You can't sit through the whole show. Mm-hmm. But I sit through about 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes I've lost forever. I'll never get it back. And it was a waste of time. But they gave me my money back. Yeah. And they'll do that at a movie. But there's limitations. If you stay for the entire movie and say, I want my money back, they're not going to do that.
Yeah, business is so competitive right now. They want to make you happy.
Sam Walton said in his book, customer votes with their feet. If they don't like the way you're treating them, they'll go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And they got plenty of choices in this day and time. Another thing, talking about stupid criminals, there was a guy that on his recorder at home on the front door, he had a guy dressed in a trash bag, came up and stole what Amazon had left. Mm-hmm. And it was 2 chargers, like $10. And he didn't turn them in. He just, he didn't want to fill out the form.
Guy put himself in a trash bag to do this?
He was walking. He had holes cut for his legs and his arms, and had it tied over him. That way no one could recognize him.
Yeah.
I would say that that's not real smart, because if I'm driving down the road and I see a trash bag walking along, I probably call the police. There's a trash bag over here on West Lynn and Enfield, and it's walking along and picking up packages off people's porches.
Yeah, you might want to come check that out.
You might want to check that out, see what's going on. I was at an event last week, and somebody said, now, are you sure they don't have to get a license to hunt Sasquatch? So I knew they'd listened. I said, I think the police told them that's okay, but be careful if you're in the northeast corner of the state of Washington. Be clean shaven. Don't look like you might be Sasquatch.
You got to tell a story about that woman and her dying wish.
Oh, yeah, this was good. I mean, she's crazy, but it was funny. She was dying, and she said at the funeral she wanted someone dressed as the Grim Reaper, with a hood and a black, dress type deal, and with a sickle on a handle of a hoe. And she wanted him to go around and point out people and said, "You're next." And said, "Golly, don't do that." And she did. And they said everybody laughed and had a pretty good time. They didn't really cherish being pointed out by the Grim Reaper saying, "You're next." But what kind of, you want a little fun at a funeral sometimes. It's sorrow, but I want people to have some laughs at my funeral. And you feel badly, but at the same time, you need to laugh about some of the things they did. But to have the Grim Reaper at your funeral pointing people out, saying, "You're next," somebody say, "The heck with you, get up and leave."
Before we wrap things up, we'd love to hear from you. So send us an email to info@hantspodcast.com. Follow us on Instagram at Best Storyteller Podcast. Chancellor, let's wrap it up with the saying of the day.
Saying of the day is Colin Powell said, "Leadership is the art of persuasion over the science of management." And it is. And that management may say, the science of management might say that's impossible. Leadership, the art of leadership, is saying that's not. Have a great day. Talk to you next week.